Hello, I'm Dominic Morris, head of the senior living team at Gowling WLG. Today in our senior living podcast series, I'm joined by Tom Lord, Chief Operating Officer at Inspired Villages Group. And we're going to be talking about some of the key issues facing the operators of retirement villages. So, hi Tom.
Hey Dominic, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Could you begin by telling us a little bit about your role and a little bit about Inspired?
Yep, so Inspired Villages, I am the Chief Operating Officer for Inspired. That means I oversee the day-to-day operations of all of our 6 villages at the moment, looking at opening the coming sites over the coming years and creating really great communities for older people to live. I also get involved in technology, oversee IT, and of course, can't go without a good bit of risk management these days, given the last year that we've had. But really, all of it focused on creating great resident experiences and helping people to live the best years of their lives.
Fantastic. So you've touched obviously on last year, and I guess that sort of the COVID experience, if we can call you that, very much sort of was proof of the pudding. Could you tell us a little bit about what the sort of experience your residents had over the last year or so, and indeed the staff on site, how they found things?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's worth just saying, and generally, our villages are really focused on holistic well-being. So ensuring that people live with us have great mental, social, physical well-being, and that means keeping people active, keeping people socially engaged and mentally engaged, which helps keep people healthier for longer. We pride ourselves on having villages with buzzing social lives and a great community. And 18 months ago, we realized that may become a challenge. And so as we saw this pandemic coming to our shores and COVID coming to our shores, we started thinking about how are we going to first and foremost keep people safe. And that involved us creating a crisis plan and a very robust plan back in February last year that went through a series of steps all the way through to what would we do if we needed to lock down our villages. Because we had that plan in place really early on of kind of the tactical, how would we address things, how could we keep people safe, how could we ensure cleanliness and reduce any potential for an outbreak. It also meant that very early on we could start to look at the well-being side of things. And if people were restricted to their own homes or restricted to where they could go, whether they were in the villages, out of the villages, we started to think then about how we could keep people engaged as well as safe. So throughout the last year, yes, it has been a constant kind of crisis response mode across 6 villages and 850-ish people, plus the team members. How could we keep all of those safe? And I think we've come through this very well. One, because yes, we do have communities, but they'll live behind their own front doors, and the series of protocols and I don't want to say restrictions, but guidance that we gave was really focused on reducing contact, ensuring social distance, and we called it social but safe. And then through the pandemic, I mean, we've had about 11 cases of COVID out of 850 people over the last year, which just shows as a prevalence rate compared to the wider population, how well equipped retirement communities are to deal with the pandemic, especially when the management teams, operators are all focused on delivering against a plan. But what was great is that the teams at the villages put in place all the protocols, reacted to the plan very proactively, and then started thinking about, well, what can we do? Because we've got to close our facilities down. So we introduced balcony exercise classes or patio exercise classes, where one of our wellbeing navigators would be out in kind of the communal square, and everybody would join from their balconies or patios, or socially distanced in the gardens. The teams at the villages then just did amazing things, because out of adversity obviously comes a lot of innovation, and we had one person that took an old bike and made it into a cocktail bike, and he'd cycle around the village and make people cocktails, deliver them to their doors so they could go and sit on the balconies and enjoy a cocktail hour.
So that's now a standard, is it, throughout the villages?
It is now a standard. Yeah, we pivoted to home delivery of food rather than the restaurants being open, but then took advantage of technology, and we did Zoom classes for exercise. We did Zoom wine tasting events, and just all sorts of different activities that would keep people engaged. And of course, through last year, that was fantastic. The great weather helped. And then as we got through to the third lockdown, I think it was more difficult, the dark nights. But again, everyone had embraced things like Zoom by that point. And we helped people to understand it a bit more. So they were all engaging, and we ended up with pub quizzes and gin and tonic hour, and exercise classes and recitals from violinists all over Zoom. So it helped to keep people really engaged. And now as we come out of it, we've been able to reopen the gyms, which are still, we restrict it to individual households to keep people safe still, using the pool, and great to see over the last week or so, the restaurants getting busy again, and people getting out and really starting to engage and socialize. Right now is a great place to be, as we bring life and vibrancy back into the villages. So we couldn't be more pleased as things kind of, everybody gets a bit more freedom, should we say.
That sounds great news. I think one of the things I found particularly inspiring, if you'll forgive the pun, has been some of the online feedback, as it were, from your residents, talking about their experience and how much they have actually been grateful, really, for living in your communities during the last year, rather than being out in the general community.
Yeah, and well, we did a thing called the Village Voices later on last year, which just gave the residents a voice, and it was great to hear. Just amazing to hear how people enjoyed being in the village, and there being some kind of interaction with the rest of the community. It wasn't that we kept all sorts going on, but even just walking around the villages where you've got 90 acres of land, there's a lot of walking that can be done, still within the safety and the confines of the village. So, I mean, that feedback was fantastic. One of the other things I'll just tell you, we launched a Facebook group early on in the pandemic, which was really focused on just putting posts out there. We were looking for ways to use technology to engage people, to engage our residents still. And so we created what we called the Virtual Village Centre on Facebook. Very quickly, we realized that why restrict it to just the residents? There's a much bigger group of over 65s out there. So we extended that to their friends and family, to our team's friends and family, and ultimately just kind of went, well, let's just have it open. Easier to manage when you're not trying to put restrictions on these things. And so we created this group where we put postings of the chefs, showing people how to create a great meal, exercise classes, just things that people could reminisce over the years, sweets from years ago, and that kind of thing. And we actually ended up gaining about 23,000 followers across the UK of this one virtual village centre site, and had some fantastic feedback through that of how it provided some sort of virtual community. And I think one of the biggest lessons for me out of the whole pandemic is we need community, and communities support each other. And our villages create great communities of people in similar situations, and they can support each other, and our teams support them. And you just create great outcomes when people come together, rather than people being stuck in their own homes. My mum and dad were in their own home for a long time, and whilst they had contact with people, it wasn't the same as regular seeing and knowing. If you step outside your front door, then you will see other people around. So no, it's been in a strange way a successful pandemic for us, and I think that the whole sector is now seeing increased inquiries and sales based on a change in perception of what retirement villages can do in creating great communities.
Excellent. So moving, I guess, on to another topic, so tenure models. So offering, I guess, a range of tenure options seems to be the order of the day. You were typically or historically a for sale model, so people buying long leases for their apartments or homes, and now you're looking to diversify a bit. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, traditionally, I think the sector in general was more around the purchase of a long leasehold, and that was, we were no strangers to that. That's the way that we built it. But over, must have been around 2 years ago now, we started looking at the option of flexing those tenure models. Introducing rental was the big one for us. So we did that around 2 years ago now. I think the pandemic got in the way a little bit, as it did with most things, and progressing. But you can now buy or you can rent, especially if you want to make the most of capital in the current world. If seniors and people moving in want to cash in on the equity in their homes and then rent, then why wouldn't we allow that? And so we've got that. We see it as being a growing part of the way that people buy into retirement villages in the future. It really does make sense, and I think the whole sector is starting to embrace this, and we'll see a lot more activity around it as we've come through the last few months with a lot of increased inquiries and activity. Rental is getting a much bigger, playing a much bigger part in that, and around 20% of our reservations are now rental. So, and we think it'll stay around that 20-25% as we go forwards. And it makes no difference to us if you rent or if you buy. It's not that we have certain properties over in one corner of the village that are rental. We pepper pot them. You choose your preferred apartment just as you would if you were buying, and you then rent. And life in the village is exactly the same. You're paying the same service charge. You're just paying rental rather than buying it outright, and then everything else stays the same. So for me, it's not a case of there being differences between sale and rental. At the end of the day, a resident in the village is part of the community, and everybody plays the same role, no matter what tenure they're under.
That's really interesting, and I think, as you say, it is part of a wider trend. We're seeing some people specialising in rental, but increasingly operators are offering some rental, and that is growing as a market share. I'd like to move on to another sort of hot topic, sustainability and ESG. So we've seen sort of announcements about your new Caddington village, which is coming forward on a zero net carbon basis. But in terms of sort of the operational piece, what does sustainability mean for you, and indeed the sort of this wider social value question?
I mean, we call it responsible business. It helps simplify it, because whenever I say ESG to anybody, no one can remember what the E, the S, or the G stand for. So responsible business, and it is about the environment. It's about social value, social impact, governance, and health, and our colleagues in that, and our culture in that as well. As you said, we've got Millfield Green, which is in Caddington, coming through as net zero on regulated energy, and that's using ground source heat pumps, solar, etc. And that'll provide a zero carbon village, which is absolutely the future. And I think, as we've seen, there was a recent report out from I think it was PwC that said that the over 65s, over 70s are as concerned, if not more concerned, about the way that they pass the world on to future generations. And so we see that as a big part of the future. And so whilst Millfield Green's the first, all of our future schemes will come through, and future villages will be built to those net zero standards. So we're committed to that. But it is much wider. There's within the villages operationally, you've got to think about reduction in waste. We've got to think about increase in biodiversity. We've got to think about just cutting those single-use plastics out of our supply chain, especially the immediate supply chain, and reducing on food waste, supporting people in that. So there's a big piece around social impact. Now, we do take that very seriously. And last year during the pandemic, in previous years, we've been supporting a befriending service down in Kent, which is close to our newest village that will open at the end of this year. And this befriending service were being made redundant. We just thought it was such a fantastic thing that it shouldn't be lost. And so we took that on ourselves, and created what we call Inspired Friendships. And that's about supporting lonely older people within the community with great events, and the wider community, not the village community. And we put on events for people to come together. Now, again, COVID came, and you can't put on events when everybody is in lockdown. So we introduced calls of friendship. We had about 100 people that were supported by members of our teams who would call them once a week just to check in and say hello. We introduced a pen pal scheme with a school, and the members of Inspired Friendships particularly, where we had primary school children writing to older people and vice versa. And the older people were helping the primary school kids with their life stories and writing letters, which are not typing them. But also they were overjoyed to receive letters from 6, 7, 8-year-olds. One that always stuck out to me that we heard about was a child that wrote to them and told her how wonderful their parents had been. Her mum had been during the homeschooling time. Her sister was very supportive, and she put in her last line, "It's been great to get all of this off my chest." And it was just lovely. Lots of pictures and stuff drawn. So that has helped a whole bunch of people that will never live with us. These people they may consider living with us one day, but then that's not what it's about. These people aren't looking to move into one of our villages, but they are experiencing loneliness within the community. Now, as we get back to normal, we'll start to reintroduce some of the events. So the park walk, you've heard of park run, but I want the park walk for anybody that's older and lonely, getting out into the park on a Sunday and going for a long walk. Events like the talking bus. So we usually have about 20 to 30 people all meeting at a bus stop at a set time, to get on the next bus to somewhere for a cup of coffee. And they free with their bus passes, sit on the bus, all have a chat, go for a coffee, come back on the bus again, good 2 hours out, and they just turn up. So we can do all of these things, and now working with other contractors, looking at apprentice schemes, looking at how we can bring new generation into building, into working in the villages, and so social impact and value out of social value through that way as well. I could go on about this for a long time, because it is close to all of our hearts at Inspired, that it's not just about what we do with the villages, which have holding a lot of social impact in themselves, but the wider initiatives, the training, the apprenticeships, the friendships.
It's worth saying, isn't it? I mean, evident from that you are sort of an integrated part of the local communities. There's some sort of people say that retirement villages are sort of quite isolated places, but it really isn't the case. And all the examples you've given there just demonstrate the benefits they can bring to the wider communities. And yeah, there's also the piece around the staffing numbers. That you employ a lot of people at these villages, don't you?
Well, yeah, we have about 30 directly employed team members at the village. But your point there about, we do want to be part of the community. I mean, ultimately, I'd love to be the trusted service provider for certain things to older people within the wider community. We don't, on the future villages especially, and some of ours at the moment, we don't have gates. The restaurant's open to the public when we get back to normal times, or the new normal. But it is about being part of a community. There's no point in going anywhere and building 150 properties that are focused on adding value to the local community and then locking everybody away. So I really don't like it when you hear things like they're just age ghettos. These are vibrant villages with people living independent lives, just in properties that are right for them, that are perfectly designed to age well. It helps people stay healthier for longer. It reduces the impact on the NHS and GP visits. It helps get people out of hospital quicker because we can get the right levels of domiciliary care and we can support them through the teams at the villages. And so retirement living and retirement villages and communities should be seen as a really big benefit going into local communities. It helps free up open market housing. You often find that people move from quite big family homes that are underutilized when the time's right for that person. And we're not saying that you hit 65 and we think you must move out of a lovely house, but there's a point where it's not as easy to maintain a big house with a big garden. And whilst you don't want to downsize into a small property, what you do want is to right size the number of rooms that you've got, because who needs those extra 3 bedrooms and a bath and 2 bathrooms to clean? What you want, but you do want the lounge, the size of the lounge that you've always had, and a great kitchen and dining experience, etc. So it's about right sizing, and we've often talked about the fact that there's not many people that at their homes have got a restaurant, a chef, a swimming pool, some great gym equipment, and somebody to help them use it, activities, and a ready-made community on their doorstep. And that's what we want to provide.
Great, that's really interesting. I think we touched on it, the role of technology, and you mentioned the virtual village and all those applications that are evolving. But I think technology is a really interesting piece in itself, because sort of beyond the bricks and mortar of this dedicated sort of purpose-built accommodation, technology, I think across probably real estate generally, has an increasingly important role to play in getting the most out of, I guess, that lifestyle experience. And are you able to sort of say a little bit more about how that looks for Inspired and what your views are on the future sort of application of technology for your villages?
Yeah, I think technology is going to play a big role. Technology is not ever going to replace personal support and hand holding and all of that stuff that we do, the caring side of our business, but it certainly will support it. And technology can be used really well to support the community, make life easier. So we've been trialing and are rolling out across all of our future villages a system called Cubigo. Now Cubigo is like a village hub. So you can go on there, you can book into the restaurant, you can book into a Pilates class, you can log a maintenance issue. We can use it to communicate what's going on around the village, and really help people to move in well, and start their journey within the village well, because all of the information that they need is there to hand. They can contact and connect with other people in the community through that. So technology can really support in creating a great community feel. And that would be the hub. We've also invested quite heavily in the technology for our gyms. What I've always, when I first came into this, and we were looking at new gym equipment, and of course you go with everybody's typical view of, right, we need some weights machines in a gym, and we of course we need a treadmill and a bike and that kind of thing. Well, we looked around and thought, well, what's the best equipment for more senior people? Because I don't know about you, Dominic, but when I go to a gym, I have no idea what to do with that little pin and which weight I'm meant to put it in and how many times I'm meant to go like this. And I got too much of an ego on me to ask that young, fit looking bloke over there what I should be doing. And so it's actually a little bit intimidating unless you know what you're doing. Now put yourself in your parents' shoes and think how intimidating going into a gym and looking at that gym equipment would look for a 75-year-old lady that's never been in a gym in her life, but wants to stay active and keep fit. And so we have partnered with a company called eGym. Now with eGym, you walk up, once you're set up, which our wellness navigators support them setting up the whole program. And then in the future, you just walk up, tap your little wristband on the screen, and it comes up with, "Hi, Tom," and the seat adjusts to your height and the weight adjusts to your program inside. And all you have to do is pull down and push so that this little ball goes along the screen and follows the curve. Now that takes all of the intimidation out of it. It makes it easy, it makes it more social. And what we found is that pre-COVID, obviously, we had 50% usage by residents in the villages and the gym equipment. And we saw a 35% increase in strength across all of the equipment, because it also does strength tests of a group of 30 residents that we kind of followed over a 3-month period. And that was just phenomenal. So that will go in the future. We always also use this thing called a cardio wall, which is like a great big game of whack-a-mole from the fair, but it goes on the wall and the lights come up and you've got to hit it. When we first introduced that or trialed it, I remember a lady using it. She said, "Oh, I can't use that. I haven't done squats for years." And our navigator coaxed her onto it, set up the program right, and she hit all these things. She got not a bad score. And the navigator at the end said, "Well, you said you haven't done any squats. Well, you've just done 12 in a minute because you had to bend down to get those. You had to reach up again." And this lady walked away and she came past me and she said, "Tom, if you ever take that away, I will hunt you down." And I was like, right, well, that's staying. We'll be putting those in every village as we go forwards. But then within the properties themselves, I think there's a lot more opportunity. So smart homes are great and getting and advancing all of the time. And care tech is great, but often used as a reactive installation. Now, what I'd like to see, and I talk a lot about this whenever I'm talking with different technology companies, is technology that is useful today, but it'll save your life tomorrow. So the example I give is, okay, having sensors around the home is great, but nobody really wants the thought of, oh, I've got to have sensors, because that's going to tell somebody how much I sit down and how much I'm in and out and all of this kind of thing. So if we could create sensors that linked to smart lighting systems that could tell when you've gone out and turn all the lights off for you so you save money, that would be an example of those sensors being useful today in my current life. And I think there'd be a fair few of us that go, well, I'll have a bit of that. That'd save me on some energy bills. That's great. But if those sensors were also then feeding back and with an algorithm telling you, telling us, telling families, whether you are better today than you were yesterday, because you've been sat down for longer, whether you've used the loo more often and therefore it's a sign of an infection, or whether you're just not using things as often around the home, then it can start to flag that you may be not so well. And if they notice that you haven't been up and about all day, then they could send an alert. So that's the kind of idea in my head of where we move from care tech to more life tech. We're talking to people about voice activated units at the moment. So play me my music today, but if I'm fallen over and I shout for help, it recognizes that and puts you straight through to support lines 24 hours a day. And how do you make that available? And it feels like we're on the edge of that coming. We've got Echo Dots. We all know how they work. And just tailoring that to link in with the support lines that we have in place, I think is kind of the next big thing of where life tech meets care tech, and it all integrates and feels like it's something you can have in your home today, but it'll save you if you fall over tomorrow.
It's a fascinating prospect, isn't it? And I guess you balance it at all times with the need for people to feel independent in the lives they're living. And one person may be sort of very happy to adapt and embrace that, and others may be more reticent, I guess.
Yeah, you're right, because we're not in the business, we're not care homes. People are living independently as part of a community. And so we don't want to be intrusive. We don't want to build every apartment, add to the cost of buying it because we've packed it with technology that they don't actually want. But what's really key is creating an ecosystem through this hub that I talked about, through the tablets that we put into the properties, and creating a great ecosystem where expert software providers can add to that ecosystem or can retrofit to it, so that we could, if somebody did get to a point where they said, oh, I really like the idea of that new innovation, can we get it retrofitted into the property and linked into the hub, so that it all works together seamlessly. That for me is the answer. And I don't think it's one tech company that can solve for everything anymore. I think it's about people working together and experts in different areas. So there'll be an expert in motion detection. There'll be an expert in the software to do the community life piece, like I was talking about with Cubigo. There'll be an expert in putting a weather monitor on the roof of a village that then links down and tells you exactly what it's like outside today. All of that coming together, the underfloor heating fitting into it, that kind of ecosystem, I think, is what will create really great outcomes for people in the future, especially in these situations where you're on the verge of it moving from just being a smart home to being one that's proactively supporting you as you grow older.
And I think that's probably a great note to end on. And it is that sort of that proactivity. These are operational villages, if you like, from the operator's perspective. You are completely invested and aligned with your residents in sort of promoting, I guess, their health and well-being and how they engage with your facilities and use them. And that is the sort of the retirement community's proposition in a nutshell, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's totally aligned with the challenge from the government of 5 years of healthier life. We know, and we've proved out through various studies, as has everybody else, that keeping active, keeping mentally, socially, and physically active can keep you healthier for longer. We know that our communities can support people better, more proactively, and be able to bring the right levels of care and support in at the right times as we go forward. So it's almost a move to a retirement village is future proofing to keep you healthier, more active, combat loneliness as we go forwards. And I mean, on that, it is just creating really great communities where people live independent lives and enjoy the best years of their lives for longer, because no need to be working. It's all about social activity, enjoying great hobbies, friendships, getting out and doing really what you've always wanted to do, and what you enjoy doing. And then on that note, if you like this one, we asked some of the residents of our villages in the last few months, well, as lockdown's coming to an end, what would you like to do? What is it that is, I don't want to call it a bucket list, but as we come out of it, what are you going to be ready to do to make the most of life now? And so one resident, she's 82, has asked if she can jump out of a plane. So she's going to be doing a tandem skydive on the 21st of June. We've had another resident ask to drive a tank, and if we could arrange that, and one that has always wanted to do a hot air balloon ride. So there's a lot of life in our elders, and I think there's just some great times ahead as these restrictions ease and people make the most of their lives, and that's what we want to help them do.
Well, I think that's a great note on which to end. So thank you very much for your time today.
No problem, Dominic. Thank you very much.